They're doing two roundabouts.
6:37, now that everybody's kind of situated. First, to kind of start here, would anyone like to volunteer to do the minutes, or do we have?
I'll get it on.
Okay. And I will say, Matt, thank you for helping. We also have apparently machine learning helping us do some of the minutes too, so.
It definitely always does help, though. Just to have a little bit of a structure to go on, for sure. But yes, the machine learning can help to fill in some gaps.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Matt. To start, we'll do roll call and introductions. We'll start with First Ward, Rachel. If you don't mind just saying who you are and which ward you represent be sufficient.
Oh, yeah. I'm Rachel Byrne. I represent the First Ward.
Oh, and you don't have a microphone, so you should get one in front of you.
You just want to get up, down, or?
If you want to, but I can just.
Oh, you know what? I didn't realize this moves.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
This one will.
Okay, thanks, Sharon.
Rad, thank you all so much.
Okay, sorry. Do it again. I'm Rachel Byrne, and I represent the First Ward.
Thank you, Rachel.
Hello, Sharon Patrick from the, where am I again? Sorry, the 6th Ward.
And I'm Bill Kuecki. I'm Second Ward Council, City Council Representative.
And good afternoon, Brennan Williams. I'm the chair and 5th Ward representative.
Hello, I am Drew Gatlin, staff engineer for the City of Morgantown Administration.
Matthew Cross, Chairman, Morgantown Pedestrian Safety Board.
Chip Walmsley, Chairman of the Bicycle Board.
Thank you, Chip. All right, thank you, everybody. Next on our agenda is the public comment. Looking out at the audience, there's no one here, so that should suffice for public comment unless there's some kind of written nothing. So we'll move on from public comment. Next order of business, I know that these are hot off the presses, but the approval of the minutes from March 5th, 2025 meeting.
Move to approve.
We got a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right.
Discussion.
Anything to discuss?
Consensus.
Consensus. All right. Okay. Then the meeting, or the minutes are approved as presented here from March 5th. Summary of neighborhood meeting reports. I guess Caitlin's not here to provide a summary, so that will be quick. So we will just move into what the main discussion is, and it's a continuation of our workshop that we had for the October 19th, or October meeting. I don't remember which day that was, but it was October meeting, to discuss our priorities and the projects. If you remember from, and those who weren't here, the last meeting, we discussed the priorities based off of the transportation priorities in the comprehensive plan. And based off those priorities, this was kind of what was presented last time, and I do just kind of really quickly want to just kind of go over what we came with, what those priorities were, and kind of some of the changes that we made. Here's kind of a diagram of what was presented, and kind of so you can play along to see what exactly changed. And one of the our discussions was how we wanted to delineate the high, medium, low to not necessarily, the best way to put it, to have 3 separate tranches is basically the best way to put it. So we came up with, or I just put in here to shifting it to A, B, and C. And then you'll see here under the second row down, there's a kind of square with an arrow box. That was because we discussed how we should just combine the intermodal priorities with the human-centered complete streets design. So that change was made. And then we kind of bumped over the EV, or electric vehicle transportation technology priority over from high to medium. So this is kind of the new reflection. And I'll say too, we got rid of, can barely see that, but, and now I can't read them. The expand the airport flight offerings for commercial industrial use. So basically, since we do not have too much say what the airport does, we just kind of nixed it from a priority. So this is the resulting priorities. Rachel, also, I know that you weren't here and didn't get the, unfortunately, we left you out in our great discussion that we had. Real quickly, if there's anything that, like, there's something jumping out, not to put you on the spot, but if you kind of agree with this, and this is not...
I mean, my quick review of this,
Sure.
I agree with what you all have. I'm sure that there was more robust discussion that, but this looks great.
Sure, great.
Are you clear that essentially Brennan, like where these originated from?
So I wasn't at the October meeting, which is when you all did a workshop.
Right.
So I did not see a lot of this.
Yep.
But just from my, like, understanding of some of the, like, aspects of this, I agree with where this is at. But if you want to give me a brief overview of how you guys got to these 3 priorities, I'm happy to.
Well, just, I guess, in general, correct me if I'm wrong, Brennan, these are taken originally verbatim from the city's comprehensive plan.
Okay.
And so anything that was transportation related, Brennan identified in that comprehensive plan, put it in a little matrix, and, I mean, not to say little as a diminutive, but put it in a concise matrix, right? And then we said, which ones are we going to prioritize? And, in October, we didn't have a matrix. It was just, here's pages from the comprehensive plan with highlights of things that related to transportation. And so since then, we've been distilling and finding overlaps and figuring out what would make sense for us to work on or to support the city, right, to do, and what excites you all mostly, right? And then what we think might be more practicable.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we have one version of the summary that Chair Williams has produced. I had forgotten that we had totally eliminated air transportation. My version of the summary is on the minutes. And I went ahead and I actually even combined truck traffic into one, right? Limiting truck traffic, right, just as a part of the support of complete streets, right, and human-centered complete streets in town. Certainly could be its own focus, but it does have, it more or less, right, I think the impetus for that, right, or the reason why we might be focusing on that is not just so that we want to limit truck traffic just because, right? We're doing that in support of these complete streets and in support of more livable streets, more city-appropriate streets, streets that are reflecting what we think are our constituents' values, right? Which seems to be not living, sharing a bed with diesel trucks at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? All throughout the day. So. I can't quite read what you did here, but yeah.
Yeah, so I will say that language on there to combine those is, I would say pretty squishy. So if we wanted to further, I think now just, we don't necessarily have, unless, this body does want to workshop and wordsmith that. Otherwise, just knowing the idea that we are focusing on human-centered complete streets and intermodal transportation options, and just leaving that broadly, I think that would suffice. But if anyone objects to that and thinks that we need to spend some time.
I would just offer this summary that I did, this single sentence here. Right?
Sure. Yeah, just so for the record, in the minutes here, that column A has been combined together to read, support the creation of human-centered complete streets by improving multimodal surface transportation options and limiting through truck traffic in the city, which I think that's fine for for our purposes.
We noted, right, that this is kind of the higher level, the goals, right, where we're beginning, and identifying some objectives here, right, limiting through truck traffic, improving options, and multimodal, all of the different modes.
Sure.
I did add in, the last thing I did right before I walked down the stairs was add in the word surface transportation, reflecting that I don't think we're talking about water transportation or air transportation when we're talking about that.
Sure.
Probably also not talking about rail, but I don't know, probably, would you give up the rail trail if we had passenger rail up to Pittsburgh, would be the question, or out to Kingwood?
I would defer.
I would defer. I would not make that decision. Yeah.
For our purposes, yeah, I think surface is fine for now.
Yeah, right.
Sure. Any further discussion? I think we have pretty broad consensus here on what's presented. Well, not to beat that horse, but I think we'll just move forward with this as presented and kind of get more to what to elaborate more on what we wanted to talk about last time, which was the projects, which I definitely think is going to be what the nitty-gritty, kind of really teasing out what exactly A, what can we do, and B, is it feasible for us to do it, and how we're going to attack these broad overarching goals here. So, and I will put the caveat out here today that this is the same information basically that was on that worksheet that was passed out at the last meeting. We'll go over here. This is by no means a complete list. This is just a kind of spur conversation and topic just to kind of get us going rather than staring at blank faces and trying to come up with what this looks like. So with the anticipation that this was broken out into two separate priorities with the truck traffic and then the complete streets, looking on your screen here is that the first priority of limiting through truck traffic in the city. 3 potential projects that I think we should discuss is just something that we can do. Very broadly speaking, I'll skip to the second bullet point there, is alternative studies with stakeholder involvement. So that would be this body kind of coming up with a methodology or scope of work kind of how we would reach out to the public and also others who are concerned with the truck traffic and also who is generating the truck traffic, and seeing if there is an amenable way to kind of divert that traffic, and then kind of think of some alternatives and then come up with an actual study and present that to council after working on that. This could, or I would imagine, could take some of that first bullet point as legal analysis on there, and legal is just kind of what the city has the authority to do and what are legal limitations from what DOH will allow and what we can propose to DOH.
And Federal Highways Administration.
Correct.
All that, yeah.
And just seeing what those options are. And then another idea was just looking at, and these are probably, I think, based off this, it would just be, wrapped into one report that we would do, is looking into some type of land swap. For instance, if a lot of the gravel traffic is going to a dock on the river there, is there a way to provide a land swap somewhere else where it would divert traffic, if that's something that's feasible for everybody. So looking at this now and just kind of talking aloud, I think it's just, this would start with just doing kind of an assessment of where we are today since the last time there was a big push to accomplish this, and really having discussions between the city, public, stakeholders that are involved with the actual truck traffic, and seeing if there are feasible alternatives, and then presenting that in a report to council. Yes, Mr. Cross.
So on the truck traffic, there many years ago, about 5 years ago, I think maybe less, they redesigned the signaling system out there at Route 7 Greenbag Road and made the dedicated left turn area now for the trucks to go out in Greenbag. And at the time, I'd asked if they're actually going to take some data on that to see if it was effective in encouraging the truck traffic to go through that route. DOH, I guess, didn't respond. It'll be curious now to see if the improvements on Greenbag Road, design improvements, are going to actually encourage even more truck traffic with the roundabouts. Would that be something we would want to take into effect, or we're just going to wait and see what happens?
Yeah, hopefully I would say with this report, kind of looking into that and just kind of...
Maybe we could ask the DOH, to maybe give us a little oversight on it if somebody's paying attention. You would hope that they are, but what do you think, Joe? Are you paying attention? To the volumes?
I'm not sure in that way. I will say that I had a 2.5 hour, 3 hour meeting with the Department of Highways design team that is overseeing the Greenbag Road shared use path feasibility study, as well as the essentially phase 2 and 3, which includes right now what's been awarded, right, is the widening of Greenbag in the middle section of it, and so sections 2 and 3 are on either end of this. And so the city was invited to participate in the review, very early design review. We're at 10 and maybe 20-ish% on the alignments for the shared use path and new bridges to support that shared use path, as well as talking about turning lanes and widening on the rest of Greenbag Road, again, to kind of complement the existing roundabout study. So in that meeting, and as part of those 366 pages of documents that were presented as part of the 10% study, in this, yeah, absolutely, trucks were considered, and I believe the DOH is absolutely considering this as an alternate route. It remains longer, right, than going through the city in terms of distance. Will it be attractive enough, or is the desire, is it more on time, or is it more on distance with fuel? I don't know, right? But believe what Brennan, what you're talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, but, not really you're proposing not waiting on even the city administration to do this study. You're proposing that the Traffic Commission itself, you all, work to do this study and facilitate this alternatives analysis, right? We've asked essentially, I will say, you all have asked the city to look at this, you've asked the DOH to look at this. It hasn't happened. So it may actually require you, if you do want it to happen, to actually do it.
Right.
I believe that's the implication.
That was my anticipation of getting to that. So it would be, as a volunteer advisory group, that would be, coming up with a methodology and a scope of work of how we would get this, and then kind of coming out and delegating teams or individuals of kind of coming up with this. And so it would be kind of be done as we do this reported out once a month for probably an hour and a half or 2 hours to kind of work on this as a group. And I know it would not be easy, but even if we do a small portion of it, maybe that would kind of get some momentum on maybe, dedicating some more resources to it, or just maybe we get an answer pretty quick if there's a legal analysis or just the discussions themselves, because it has been a little bit, that maybe there's a change there. So
Certainly could also, if you have a drafted, study, the scope of a study that you'd want to do, that would be a thing that you could ask, a more explicit thing that you could ask the city to fund, or, specific data needs that you all would have, right? Hey, we want to know all of the city-owned properties that are anywhere near this certain place, or do you have, can you point us to percentage of truck traffic studies in these corridors? Again, right, you could either, with a predefined scope, right, you could give the city and/or the Department of Highways and/or the MPO, right, the option to say specifically in writing, no, we're not going to fund this, right? Force the hand a little bit.
Well, do you know, is there any way to determine how much, due to the damages, whether it's gravel spilling out everywhere, the potholes, maybe accidents that occur due to the truck traffic, is there a way to monetize that to make people that's costing us what, or anything like that? Is there any, I don't know, police reports that might lead to financials of this cleanup costed us X amount of dollars? I know one time, it's now, I think, Essie's, that curve on Brockway knocked out the electric pole, which happens quite often because I live on Peninsula, so the electric's out. And it's happened a couple times in our almost 15 years, so enough that I remember, but how much does that cost the city? I would love to be able to pull that information and be when this held up traffic for 2 hours, the ramifications of that, the trickle down. Any type of, there's probably not, but any ideas regarding the financials that are paid out towards, detriments from the roads, or road happenings or truck happenings?
I had wondered also, do state trucks like that, since they're driving on state roads, do they pay an impact fee to state tax somehow? Rear
Or the user fee, or?
So, so to answer your question, is it possible to generally quantify the impact of anything in general, right, on anything else? Case here we have trucks, and then we have just human life, right, in Morgantown. Absolutely, it's definitely possible. Is anybody currently doing that? No.
Sure.
But could you ask the police department for a tabulation of every single crash that was reported that they responded to that involved a truck? Yes.
Okay.
And then you could put that data together and say, look, city, I know that you didn't do this before, but we did it for you. Look at how many crashes there are. And then you could come up with, you could research, right, the general cost of a crash. You could see the coding of any potential injuries, right, that resulted from that. And then the standard way would be to just assign a general dollar figure.
Yeah.
Right? You can get as detailed as you want to. If this person is 7 years old and they died, their life is worth on average X millions of dollars.
Or even just it sent 2 policemen, you have 2 EMT folks, their dollar amount or something like that, it's costing us X amount of dollars per issue, because that could mean anything. That could be, traffic's backed up and, I don't know, a truck's stuck on the, there by Pizza Hut. So I wonder, okay.
Yep, and so, right, this sounds like the outlining of the study. Right.
Yeah.
You asked, what?
Impact fee on trucks for tearing up the roads.
There is no specific operational user fee that currently exists for trucks, as far as I'm aware. There are registration, right, for commercial vehicles. And then, of course, there's the gas tax, right? That is the big revenue generation that electric vehicles do not pay into, which is the awkward part about, right? We do sort of have a user fee in highways, but it relies on you burning gasoline, right?
They charge you extra for an electric vehicle on your regregistration
The
to
state
make
of
up
West
for
Virginia now
that,
does.
like,
Yeah, right.
the gas that you don't use.
Right, yeah, very interesting. Of course, the gas tax goes nowhere near covering the amount of money that we spend on even just highway projects in the state or in the city, you know? The city sees no percentage, as far as I'm aware, of any gas tax dollars.
Drew,
Do
does
the
your-
trucks itself pay any kind of extraordinary fee for use of state highways?
I do not believe they do, but I
I
cannot
mean,
say.
they're certainly not taxed or at the same rate that automobiles would be. Is that correct?
I believe they are, you know, like if a truck goes through a toll road, right, they pay much higher toll fees typically, right? And that is trying to recapture some of that impact. The general figure that we use in terms of roadway degradation is what's known as the equivalent single axle load. Okay, so ESAL. And that means, so if you have a single axle vehicle, a passenger car, that's one equivalent single axle load. A general tandem, right, dump truck that we see that is not overloaded would be the equivalent of 10,000 passenger vehicles passing over the same point. That is the generally accepted rule of thumb regarding pavement degradation. So it is several orders of magnitude more destructive to the pavement structure itself.
Well, a user fee concept is interesting to propose, coming from this organization, that an inquiry could be made and perhaps is possible through home rule. I don't know. However, some of the other things that we're talking about here are questionable as to whether or not this organization has the capacity to do these things. And I don't mean to rain on your parade. I mean, everybody agrees that this is not advantageous to the city. This is not something that we would promote or even encourage. But there, it's been addressed. The legal analysis has been addressed as far as the Supreme Court of West Virginia. The alternate study, we've had that numbers of times. Perhaps we don't have the data that you're referring to, and that would be a good argument for a user fee of some sort, that if we could specifically point it to the cost to the city in order to do this. In other words, they have the right to ride on state highway or state roads, but as they travel through the city and they cost us one thing or another, then we might be able to make an argument for a user fee of some sort to compensate. Then it would be good to have that kind of, and if we could get that data, if we could think this thing through enough, that would be good. And in terms of land swap, there is an alternate place for Greer to dump that, but they won't use it because it's too far up.
Sure.
And they have to go through the locks, so it costs them more money.
Sure.
Plus the route is longer, and the last I heard way back when, it was 3 cents. It was a figure that I heard more to go that route as opposed to come through town. And depending on the amount of trucks, I don't know what that means to them. There is a
Certainly,
difference in cost.
if you could tabulate the costs of the police response and Public Works going out and cleaning up gravel. And
I guess what I'm suggesting is that what we should do is something that as a commission, we need to know what we are really capable of doing, and what we might be able to actually promote. Coming up with a concept, and I'm pleased to hear that, like a user fee is a proposal that is a question that can be put forth to our administration and then by our council, our city lawyer, and to see whether or not that's appropriate. So that's a box you could check. I really think that if we could, as a commission, focus more on the idea of what we might do in terms of pedestrian safety, or what we might do in terms of what needed to be done in terms of neighborhood accessibility activities, is probably more useful.
You mean, Bill, it's how we've kind of had this separate, we're talking about combining it, you think it would be more advantageous to focus on this, on the human-centered complete streets and kind of pedestrian safety?
Well, it's a more comfortable area for our capabilities.
Sure.
it's funny though, right?
And I would also suggest to you that there may be some hope that we have a chance to preview tomorrow, as a matter of fact, with this downtown study in particular. If there's significant changes suggested that may change routes through downtown, or whether or not we go to one way or two ways or what have you, that may or may not make it less advantageous for the trucks to come through and more advantageous for them to take another route. But unfortunately, and Drew, I think you know better than I, that we're probably looking at least 3 to 5 years before we're going to see Greenmont, or Greenbag rather, in place.
Yeah, probably. These are all multi-decade projects that we're talking about here, though, right? I will push back on, I guess, there's nobody right now working on the truck problem in the comprehensive manner that Chair Williams is talking about, right? We do have basically every single agency, including even the town of Star City and the town of Westover, the town of Granville, the city of Morgantown, the MPO, and the Department of Highways, all expending actual real dollars on pedestrian safety issues, specifically focusing on planning, building sidewalks, doing complete street stuff, right? That is actually work that is happening, and there are wins to be had there, right? But it's not as if nobody's doing that work, right? People are not really doing wayfinding right now. People are not looking at our complete streets policy and like, is there a more systematic way that we could just automatically make sure that these things are happening, these decisions are occurring? Like, can we hold ourselves accountable when we don't build a sidewalk on a roadway where we said we were going to, right? But to say that we're not, in general, right, that anybody is not focusing on those things, I don't think it's very accurate, right? And so identifying a place where, there's general communal unrest and frustration and then interest from the commission, right? Trucks does seem to have a lot of those intersections.
Well, you've identified the subject. Tell me what you are proposing as an activity that will move it into some
Right.
form of being corrected. The only thing I've heard so far is the possibility of, and it's probably a long shot, of a service fee.
Right, and I think that you're wanting a solution before you do a study.
What
Right.
study are you proposing, and how do you think this commission is capable of conducting that?
we just talked about essentially scoping out that study. The commission essentially just doing what Sharon did and saying, okay, what are the costs? Let's list out the costs. Sharon noted that utility poles are taken out regularly. What costs can we associate with that? What does it cost the average household to have their utilities cut off, their electrical utilities cut off for 4 hours? How many people are affected every year on average by a truck taking out a utility pole in that area, right? You can work with public health individuals. We have a lot of those. A lot of them are actually even out of work right now in the city of Morgantown, right? So a lot of people that you can engage that have maybe excess capacity, right? And you could do a statistical analysis about how many people, excess deaths that you have just from that one utility shut off for 4 hours, right? There's probably going to be one person that dies because of that. And what does that cost? And then, of course, identifying alternative corridors, right, and doing the right things, making sure that everybody's familiar with all of the things that you mentioned that have already been studied, right? I don't think anybody has read the Supreme Court decision. It's not very digestible. It's not very findable, right? People are interested in it, but can we package it, refresh it, put it in front of people again, right, and say, this is the commission's priority. We want to fund this. We want you to fund this. We want you to do this, X, Y, Z.
I have 2 questions. You had mentioned that you got these bullet points from the comprehensive plan, right?
I got so this is the page taken from the comprehensive plan, and so those bullet points are the priority actions on the far right there. It's kind of hard
Okay,
to see.
so limit through truck traffic is in the comprehensive plan. So
Correct.
it's something that the city has decided collectively that we want to work on.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm that that isn't like the commission. I personally have vendettas against the truck through traffic, but that is a citywide 10-year, the comprehensive 10-year. So this isn't something that you're suggesting, we have to do this in the next 2 months.
Correct.
Okay. So for Bill, I think your worry was, we're a small commission, we meet once a month, if that. Do we have the time, capacity, and expertise to do this? Was that kind of your worry? Like, can we scope out this, which sounds like could be as extensive as we'd like it to be, but might be something that we bite off more than we can chew? Bill, was that kind of your worry about it?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
I mean, you're good representatives of your community. You understand what's happening in your community. You understand the traffic that flows through your community. But where's your expertise in determining, what a better route might be? What's your training, your background? How can you contribute to this particular thing?
Great. So I think we can all collectively decide that, I have public planning experience, I do legal research for a living, so I can lend those types of activities. I also like to dig through data sets, so I am willing, if the commission decides that this is something that they like to go to lend what I have to offer into digging through and figuring out how we'd like to present this data, whether it is kind of a cost analysis, it's pooling public and comments together. I'm sure we can find good and, adverse for both things. I think that this is not something that we should say immediately, we can do this huge, Drew, in 2 months, we're going to present this to your department and tell you exactly what is going on and have an end goal for this. But I think that this is a gap that the city has, our community has, and that nobody, like Drew said, is filling. I think that there's a lot of things we can discuss. I mean, the first ward, as the city's thawing out, so are the car traffic that's going past the park, right? We can all discuss that that's a huge issue, but I think there's a lot of people who have their hands involved in it, that in that, and what we don't have is this gap that we might be able to fill. So I'm willing to, if the commission decides to go through with that, to donate some of my time to see where we can get with this, and maybe possibly present, if we don't have a solution, present the problem that needs solved. And I think that that is kind of, Brennan, is that what you were thinking? Like, there's a problem, we need to show that this is a problem more than a couple people who come and speak about it in city council.
Sure, and I think, and I definitely agree with Councilor Kowecki that that is a, you know, the resources and the feasibility of this body being able to do what we're setting out to do is a very valid concern.
Yeah.
I would, what the intentions of this, you know, report can be as robust, or it can be even super narrow that we want to get, but it has some kind of work product as a group that we either have a call of action with recommendations and solutions, and making a recommendation to council to make a move on, or is it just simply if these other alternative routes have been suggested, maybe it's even just as simple as, based off our capacity, is just compiling those, looking at them, discussing them as a group, and kind of looking at those, and just even if it's just having it in one place to remind folks that, hey, this has been a problem, this is why it hasn't been, or this is the trouble that we're having solving it. It can be, and it could be even more robust, where we go through and we look at all of these things and come up with with quantitative analysis, qualitative, having interviews with the truck drivers, the companies who are, you know, starting the traffic, just to kind of have goodwill of, like, look, we're not trying to shut anyone down, we're just trying to find feasible alternatives to what makes sense. And so even if it's just we get to a point where either folks on this commission, or we somehow delegate someone to conduct interviews with those folks, that we've gone through a process to say that this has been looked at, and that we have documentation that the city can say, you know, we've heard this time. There's a very loud concern about this, and this is the steps that we have taken and we can take, and kind of the thing.
Even if the only thing that you did was advertise the next several traffic commission meetings as forums on truck traffic in the city of Morgantown, and just saw everybody that wanted to come and talk about that, just learned, and just did listening sessions, right? That would be potentially valuable and useful, right? Capturing certain vibes, right, that have not been done at least since 2010, right? The last push on this was more than 15 years ago.
And I think, to speak to Mr. Quicky's, like, about, you know, expertise, and that's where I was thinking with dollars. When you can really drive someone to go, whoa, our taxes are paying an extra $645 towards all these issues, and then kind of hone into public health as well. Because we're all, you know, breathing this air, we have children here, we have families. And so kind of honing in on those two items, I thought would make a really good drive of, here's what we can do, and, you know, work together. So I think that was a good point to make us aware of, like, okay, what is the expertise? So if we have, like, again, those 2 points, I think, drive a lot of people to make decisions on where they either want to spend their time, their money, etc.
Sure. Now I would propose that before we would actually vote and say, you know, this is we've identified as a priority, and this is the kind of project that we're going to do, I would propose that, you know, I'm willing, with my background, to kind of work on a scope of what we would kind of willing to do, and actually, before we even set out in the process, as a group, kind of talk about what realistically we could do, and maybe even how much time this is going, what that process looks like, and scoping out, even if it's just a small little portion of this study, or even if it just starts out with, we want to collect those alternative studies, and then as a commission, look at those.
What's been previously done, essentially.
Correct. And then present that to council. However, we just want to report and just say, and just even too, so we can garner more goodwill with, as a committee, but also too, as information kind of trickles in, maybe we can drum up some more support or, free up some other resources that's worth the administration's time or whomever's time to look into this.
Brennan, while we're going through this, are we proposing that we choose one of these 5 things and focus on it? Or are we doing kind of, I'm just thinking about, again, the capacity that we have as a commission. I think if we would take on a project like that, that would be kind of a sole focus.
Sure.
Are we proposing that we also we're focusing on all 5 of these things and kind of, because we don't really have a large enough commission to split off into working groups, unless we had individual working groups.
You could certainly, right, recruit people to work with you, right? Friends of the commission, you can ask your bicycle and pedestrian boards for assistance too, but yeah. I would say, right, if the goal that you identify is starting with just a summary of what has been done, right, and having then a meeting of that shouldn't take several years, right? If on the next bullet point, right, the next high priority, support the creation of human-centered complete streets by improving multimodal surface transportation options and limiting through truck traffic in the city, right? So that first part of that sentence. Last meeting, I identified that there are very clear best practices for complete streets policies that can achieve things just through administrative rule and procedure that you all might be interested in sort of the city considering, right? If the city is very serious about its proclamations that it makes on a regular basis regarding pedestrian safety, and with all the money that it's spending on sidewalks, with all of everything, right? And the comprehensive plan is often talking about complete streets. Why do we not have an actual binding, administrative rule on how we are doing that and thinking through those decisions, right? And so that the initial work of doing that could be just about a week, right? Of really concerted interest and effort, looking at, okay, what's the policies that are the best practice right now that Morgantown could consider, and then there you go, present it and say, hey, this is what we want. And then you have, of course, the back and forth maybe with the city council and other things like that, but you could do whatever you want to, focus on one or do multiple at a time, or a little bit here, a little bit there.
The general idea with this plan is to identify the priorities, so where we would want to kind of start. The nice thing with having a probably broader than we could bite off is knowing that this is a long-term kind of goal situation here. And so as smaller projects do creep up over the years, or even big projects that come out, we kind of have a thought process of a unified front on kind of idea. Does it fit within comprehensive plan with what we're what we're envisioning as transportation? But then also too, if there's another public hearing coming up with, say, with the MPO that we just weren't aware of a new project, that it falls under one of our priorities, that maybe we kind of, okay, we need people to be there to kind of make sure this is what we're focusing on, kind of a thing. So it's to kind of keep accountability on us on a very long-term period, but what we're mobilizing towards, we'd probably start in that first column, knowing that we have these other tranches of things to be looking at. Yeah.
So, a couple things. For the study that was done in the Supreme Court case that was brought in this attempt many years ago, I wonder if there's some facts in there that we could revise, or some things that I don't know, primarily like what is a primary source for the truck traffic? Is it the power plant down on Beechers? Does it go further on out Route 7? And is it primarily Route 7 that we're talking about with the truck traffic? Do we need to include anything that's 119 down the Fairmont Road, because that comes through town as well? So I'm thinking about, the volume, the destination for these trucks? Where are they going to? And how many trucks are going to the power plant? How many are going out Route 719 to Cass and out the western end of the county there? And are they basically originating from the eastern part out of Greer on Route 7? So we could look at, origin, destination, and volume of those destinations, where they're going. Do you happen to recall, Bill, was that data in any of the previous thing about where they're primarily heading towards?
Yes, it was.
So that
And
information's already there. We can look at it.
There's lesser traffic now because of the power plant, and the power plant's shut down.
The power plant's burning gas only.
Yeah, so you're not getting coal coming in from that direction.
But there is a Greer facility adjacent to the power plant, right behind the
And
Seneca Center.
that's where all
And
the-
they carry a larger aggregate. The original loading facility, I think, is still being used. That's a different size aggregate. And that is what prompted Greenbag Road to actually be called Greenbag Road.
Greenbag's
And to
company.
be paved, because Johnny DeAngelis, that's down at the Seneca Center, he was telling me that he went away to the military and came back in the early 60s, and it was paved, and they had a horse farm right on what would have been on Greenbag, and all the people up Aaron's Creek had horse farms, and they would just all ride their horses around.
Yep.
From one farm to the other. There was, literally, it was a path.
I mean, that's interesting.
So-
That's an interesting narrative, right? That's an interesting call to action. Return Greenbag to its roots, right? Greenbag's a company. It was originally a gravel road, right? Originally gravel transportation corridor. Like, use it, right?
Well, I'm sure a lot of, too, the trucks in the 50s, probably, we got into the 60s, trucks were a lot bigger. It was maybe more efficient they found that barge traffic, because probably originally a lot of stuff was done by rail, but then when they figured that barges were much more doable, they had to use trucks to get it there. It was easier to just put it in a truck once and take it and offload it to the barge. And so, it's evolved, so.
So those power plants, I wonder, is that open information if someone were to call there and say, hey, how many trucks come through your plant each day?
I don't know that they even have trucks coming through.
They don't have trucks anymore.
I mean, to the power plant, turning left off of Beechurst to get down.
Again, that's nobody. So what Bill is saying and what we've just said is they're not burning coal anymore.
Well, what are those trucks called?
Well, they're going back behind us for the other
There's
Greer
a dock.
dock.
So
There's a
that's right
dock
next
back
to the
there.
power plant, and Greer delivers.
Which would be really easy to talk to people because they're lined up. You can just walk around and say, hey Bob, would you like a chocolate milkshake or a coffee? And we can talk to them and get some information.
Maybe that's where we put our resources, just so
We can set up like donuts and coffee and they would, because their whole trucks are waiting.
Sure, I'm just asking, if we're going to look into this, it'd certainly help me to find out what is the destination for these trucks.
Your expertise and your extensive involvement in MPO Citizens Advisory Committee,
Yeah.
the people that do all the studies that you're describing, where does freight traffic begin? Where does it go to? Where does it travel along? How much of it is there? That's the MPO.
Great, that's a
And
source.
so that's your assignment.
If I volunteer for the subject.
Yeah.
You got a partner in crime, so we're both there to.
Right.
You want Jing or you want Bill? I will trade off.
Which could be a thing I would get into, so.
Of course, the city can also purchase commercial data sets, right? These days, it's all about big data. And so everybody's got their cell phones on them or whatever. Whether or not you can actually depend on that to characterize freight traffic, I don't know. But in 2010, Bill suggested that there was that study that was done, right? And that the city did gather some data about the patterns and where they're going and coming from. That seems like a very clear, easy thing that should be part of this study that Brendan, right? That just basic origin destination study.
There were conversations and negotiations with the trucking companies, too.
Right.
Is that logged somewhere in the city?
I don't know where the minutes from those meetings are not.
Yeah, I've never seen it myself.
It was done with, in cooperation, I think, with either the Development Authority or, at the time, it would have been the Chamber.
I'm guessing, yeah, the Morgantown Area Partnership would probably have copies of some of this stuff.
Perhaps.
Have inherited some of the previous.
Was this case, was the case resolved, or I guess, I don't know, the decision made in 2016? Or is that, because if you're saying 2010, I imagine it to take long, but did a quick big data search here, and I got 2016. The Supreme Court of Appeals, yeah.
Yeah, it was the.
Newsom.
It was dropped down in 2016.
Okay, then this is it, all right.
Last thing I'll say is we're probably going to get some resistance from that mechanic shop on Brockway Avenue. I'm sure they get a lot of business replacing suspension.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yes. What I would propose, because it is 7:30 and I do want to get us out of here by 8, kind of talking about this, I would propose the next meeting, I would volunteer kind of putting a scope of work of kind of what this would look like, really kind of see what kind of breadth makes sense for us to take care, or even just the first steps that we want to take as a group, and kind of vote and say this is kind of where we want to go is for the project to kind of that would handle this priority or what, but just to kind of really put some next steps for this project, and then to have a educated conversation about what kind of resources or how we're going to, get that kind of done a little bit more so than this nebulous thing and trying to fix it, and actually have some next steps that we can look at and that we can talk about as a group if that's something we want to tackle.
Yeah, I would like to, I don't know if it's possible, but I know that it was like a firm that helped write the comprehensive plan, but I would really like to get the folks that were responsible for the transportation section to either bounce ideas off of them, for them to collaborate with us in some way, because, they have these aspirational goals, and we're trying to carry out that goal. That I would like to get their input, like, what did you mean? What did, and I know there's some further details within the comprehensive plan breaking it down, and I'll look into that, but is there any way, is it the planning commission or something, or?
I don't know. So there was a firm that helped the city write the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
I know probably Ricky Yeager, who is the director, might have some more insight on that and maybe getting in contact with some folks. But as someone who's written comprehensive plans before, I'd imagine this comes up a lot of public input of what are concerns and things that that the general public would like to address.
And I think you're correct. And again, you're thinking of the comprehensive plan as being some sort of path for accomplishing things. What it really is a wish list of items as demonstrated by community as to what you would like to have the city address. So you're not going to find solutions in that particular document. What you're going to find is just our wish list, so.
Sure, and I'm hoping from that possibly to even just get further detail, what, going from, it was public input, but, I mean, I guess I just think I'm sure it costed lots and lots of money to contract with an organization to write this and really put that information out there, and people's time to put into it. So I know the wish list, I understand that, but I just wish there was my wish list is that it would be like the next step though, but we had this idea.
Right.
Or these plans, potentially. And as Mr. Quickie's saying, it doesn't sound like it's out there, but I want to poke and prod.
You're literally doing it right now. Right?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. And if you want to do more diving into the public comment, right, you could ask the firm if they have records of the public comment, or Rachel seemed to be suggesting open source research, right?
Yeah,
So
okay.
like, everybody's posting on Facebook about how much they hate trucks, right?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty easy to do searches of the public groups up there and to just search the terms trucks, right? And just extract those and review those.
Yeah,
I'll set a Google alert.
careful.
Again, right, instead of really diving into like the data, right, outlining the study and what you would like to, the data that you would like to have or that you would like to be considered in a study, right?
Drew, do you know if, I'm just curious, what is it, the 311 app?
Yes.
Do you know if, like, can you filter some of those do people complain about the traffic on there? Like, could you look through that and filter, like, trucks and see, like, is there a robust amount of, like, complaints on, I'm just thinking of, like, ways we can source that. Obviously, we could open up the meeting and have people come in here and discuss however they'd like about it, but, like,
I
I'm
would
wondering if
say-
that's also a source of, like,
Yeah, it could be a source for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
and maybe people are not complaining about truck traffic through that
I don't
app, but
think we see as much in that app. I think most people that are using that app do understand that limiting truck traffic is not a appropriate use for that app. But yeah, I would say, happy to do some queries on that or attempt to. I do believe that it is open for you to even do that at this point as well.
Okay.
So
Well, the
there is
first-
a web platform, there's an app, but there's also a web platform that you can search and go to. All of the comments are public. There are some internal comments when we're replying to people and coordinating stuff internally, like, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, the first three
no,
are
it's-
related to
it's-
potholes, traffic, sidewalks, so
Yep.
it's, there's,
Perfect, yeah. So
if there's a
Sharon already
filtering,
knows
so
how
on
to do it.
you said there's the web version of it too?
There is a web version of it, and
And
it's
it's probably-
easier to manipulate.
Yeah, okay.
I've only ever used the app on my phone, and I was like, I don't think I can, like, I can see a lot of, like, there's trash in this area. But I don't know.
I would, recommend making sure that you look at closed complaints.
Okay.
Yeah, not just open complaints and process complaints. Yeah.
Interesting how they're actually doing the Walnut Streetscape right now, and that's where we got most of our trucks blowing through, so. One hand, you got
gonna be very
some
interesting.
benefit, the other hand, still got sand bill.
It was nice that they did get this paved, because it was,
Potholes
Pretty
filled at least.
yes. Yeah, yes, probably, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good example of, even though it's not our roadway, if the citizens get loud enough, we can be shamed into spending money on a state road. So,
Well, yes.
It
And
is
that's a whole-
possible, it is possible.
That's a whole other thing, if we take that money that we spent and we report that out somewhere, of like, look at what is happening, again, I think, dollars equal impact, so.
Yep. Yeah, so again, rather than trying to dive in and look at that data initially, just saying like, this is the type of thing that we would like to look at, right? We want to quantify these things, and then you identify, this one's not possible to quantify, this one is possible to quantify, and we're going to ask Drew for the information,
So I'm wondering, do we want to form a subcommittee to take this task on with volunteers, or what do you think?
It sounds like that's headed that way. I would say that if this is something that we do want to investigate further, is that we kind of narrow down this priority and take it one bite at a time. So if we need to do a scope of work that we're all on board with, and kind of seeing if we need, one or two people to kind of head up that particular project and recruit folks, and then just once a month kind of, at our meeting, respond and report out how it's going, or have a formal report on what that looks like. I think we do want to, I guess, the upcoming meetings would be looking in more detail of, how we would accomplish this and what's the kind of next move for us as a group to kind of get it done.
Question, upcoming meetings, we going to plan to meet each month in the year 2025, or what do you think, Drew?
If we've got a consistent agenda and consistent energy, then I think we can do it, if you all would like to. But we can also not do every month if you would like to not do every month. We can do every quarter, or do every other month. Monthly seems like it's probably good for the commission. Most others tend to meet monthly. Sometimes it gets to be a lot, but if we're not happy to come up with a new agenda every time, and it's
Sure.
kind of the consistent thing, and we're working on something consistently, then it'll probably be a little bit less overwhelming to do that.
Yeah.
And then people will be able to expect there to be a traffic commission that they can come to and get public comment to as well.
Yeah, man, we can recuperate from that COVID shutdown and try to get back. So as for this focus on the truck traffic, do we want to maybe focus on that for next month and then move on to the other lower tier items? Is that how we want to approach it?
I think what I'm thinking right now is, we kind of would say wrapping up, is that I do want to I volunteer myself to put a scope together for this truck traffic thing, just kind of looking how this kind of pans out, spend a little bit of time discussing that, but also probably email out this presentation where we kind of look at the other projects so we can kind of digest it away and then kind of bring back a little bit of discussion further, kind of like this, as we kind of go through and say, this has been named a priority, this is the project that we should probably tackle to kind of help that priority kind of a thing, if that makes sense.
So what do I record for the minutes regarding our plan of action?
You can put that plan of action is that Brennan will come up with a scope of work to present next meeting, potential scope of work for the truck traffic.
Okay.
Brendan,
Anybody that has ideas?
would you like to, or is it appropriate, as people do the research, look into this, that they email you with things that you might include in your
Absolutely.
program?
I would open that if, this is an open, I will take the reins on putting together, but if anybody has ideas, certainly I'm open and would encourage you all to.
Well, as you do your research, if you come across something you think is appropriate to question or that
Yes.
you'd like to have more information on, I think that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
I can take an action item to contact Bill and Jing at the MPO, and aside from our regular meeting, and just see what kind of information they can come up with. A lot of stuff that they do, since that's kind of a federal initiative for certain size cities, is they have access to lots of data that other cities have come up with, and there's lots of guidelines and things, and they cover everything from seaports and container movement. We're not really a seaport, but we're a river town, so there's a lot to the MPO beyond just city streets and county streets. It's how all the different types of transportation work together, and so it's amazing how much access of stuff they have. So
Perfect.
I'll see what they got available. So
Wonderful. Thanks, Chip.
Yeah, actually, they were talking about some DOH is looking at a freight program, and I don't recall exactly what it is, so regarding that, that's kind of fresh information that should be on their minds.
right, I know they're kind of on our side because now they're having to deal with the Greenback Road thing, and that's really going to throw a wrench in them. They're scrambling, trying to figure out how to get their people in and out of their facility, because they're going to be at a main center of it, because they're doing a roundabout to handle all the bus traffic primarily at South Middle School.
Yeah, they're taking our laydown yard. at the
Yeah,
city.
yeah, so it affects the city too, so.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So you're right there with
When
mud.
is that roundabout proposed?
When?
Yeah, is that our That's what that project is right now?
It's
That's
the
right there?
same, so there's two roundabouts.
Two roundabouts.
I didn't realize there was two. I
Yeah.
saw that they have signs about your money is being spent right here, but I didn't realize that they were putting a roundabout there.
So yeah, there's a roundabout where it's controversial at the community farm, right?
Yes.
And then there's another roundabout where it's not so controversial at what people call Mississippi Street, it's
Okay.
actually MTech Drive.
Yeah. I
We
didn't realize
we
that's
should
what was going
spend
in
some
there.
time on commissioner comments, and then I also have some news items I would like to share throughout the 8 o'clock, so.
It's 2 for 1, it's a promotional item, would be right.
Yeah, that works for me, but just to wrap up, since you said, Matt, so for the minutes, I'll write out the scope of work. Please, anyone contact me with ideas, go into that scope of work or what you'd like to look at. I will send out this PowerPoint that has the potential projects on there, just to kind of get familiarized yourself or come up with an idea, or for next discussion. Added Chip's, Chip is graciously going to contact Bill at the MPO about info they can provide, and we will discuss further projects beyond just this truck traffic. With that, I'm going to close that portion of this discussion and move on to the commissioner's comments and then Drew's comments as well. Not to speed anyone along, but Rachel, if you want to start, again, start with you, work your way. If you have anything to report out that you've heard in First Ward about, or would you like any comments to be made for First Ward?
So.
Could I interject a question for the minutes? Do I need to take down the commissioner comments per individual?
Probably, yeah. I would think so. We do on city council.
Okay.
I can fill that in.
Okay.
Yeah, with AI overlords. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so in the First Ward, both at the neighborhood meeting, communication with the mayor, and our First Ward neighborhood group, as the community is thawing out and more folks are in our unique two-park area, the traffic is getting busier and also faster. So we have been discussing ways to combat that.
Specifically on
And-
Mississippi Street.
Specifically on Mississippi Street, but I think all throughout the First Ward. There was, last year we had, also in addition to that, Dorsey Avenue had a speeding sign that seemed to work really great. People were slowing down to the 25 miles per hour. Some folks are worried that that has since gone to the wayside and people are back up to, I'm not a traffic, but they're 40 miles per hour that they're going. And so the First Ward is wondering if maybe that is something we could get some of those speeding signs back into the neighborhood. I'm sure several other neighborhoods could use those too, but the First Ward is unique with two parks and lots of foot traffic. And so it is a concern of the neighborhood that folks are going way too fast for the amount of children, bicycles, et cetera, that are in our neighborhood.
And Rachel, just to clarify, you mean the speeding signs that actually have the radars on them?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Rachel.
Are you referring specifically, there's been some chatter about Sarah Street and crashes that have been happening at Sarah and Dorsey? Or,
That might,
okay.
that could be, I just know that in Dorsey, the speed limit is 25 and people are going significantly faster than that. I think the same thing can be said about Mississippi. Particularly, there's the paths that cross, but yeah.
I don't have a whole lot to report out, but I see that the Greenmont neighborhood met on the 31st. I missed the meeting, but they were discussing like city roads, Department of Highway roads, so I'll follow up to get a better report, what the concerns are, what their input is, and potentially reach out to some of those folks then to work on maybe a working group of sorts, whatever we work out, based on the scope of work. Thinking about traffic, though, as Rachel mentioned, that the new Marilla Park, the new water park looks fantastic. I imagine, due to GPSs, that my street, Peninsula, is going to get bombarded with folks traveling through to get to the park, maybe not sure where they're going. And just like kind of the backside of Brockway, getting up to the park. I imagine more folks are going to be coming in on that entrance versus the other entrance, which I believe it's white, the white entrance. So I'm thinking preemptively, possibly, that's much like the radar enforced things. I might need to request that those get out there. As you know, I believe, I don't know if it opens in May, I think maybe, that the new aquatic place. So that's something to kind of be thinking about, whatever we can do to slow or, impede traffic a little bit, because I imagine folks are going to be going through there. But that's all I have to report out.
Thank you, Sharon.
I may step on what Drew is going to be telling you, but tomorrow, MPO is meeting down at the railroad station. They'll be talking about the Passover on Don Knotts Boulevard and pedestrian concerns too, so if you have a chance, you should go. That's at 5:30 to 7, I believe.
I tried to go to that meeting today before this, and realized real quick it was tomorrow.
I've done the same thing. Other than that, I haven't heard any other concerns, so I did attend the Greenmont meeting.
Oh, nice.
There was no, their conversation primarily that night was about T-shirts and lighting.
Okay,
So no complaints about streets that I heard anyway.
good to hear.
Great. Thanks, Bill. Yeah, Fifth Ward also I have not heard any formal complaints or anything. I think it's been pretty quiet up on Fifth Ward, so nothing to report this month.
Would you like to go?
We talked about this many years ago, and I think it might probably be a non-issue, but Sunnyside Super Ready reopening, good for them. Looks like that's primarily going to be walk-up traffic, but we had talked about some alternate parking right there on 2nd Street, I believe, is right next door. I don't know that the engineering department came up with a solution at that point in time. So as I say, it might not be something we need to look into, but I see a lot more cars parked out in front there now. And that's a very small parking lot. These big Ram trucks are forcing people to walk out in the road. I don't know if that's a solution or not. Something to think about. I want to thank the WVU Student Government Administration. They put on the WVU Safety Walk on March 24th last month. I had a good turnout from those young individuals there within the WVU Senate. They were taking pictures. They're submitting those to the 311 app, so they're doing great work. They're putting together resolutions. They're documenting their work with photographs. So glad to see that that's continuing going on. They really get involved with their particular territory and their university regarding safety and bicycle accommodations and ADA. So that's great to see. We're getting it out there on people's minds. Great to see the sidewalk being finally put in on University Avenue at Mulberry Street, my division of highways. It's just a small little section. It's only about 12 yards. It's been needing to be done for years. Took a lot of water remediation though, because that's an active culvert. But glad to see that that sidewalk is at least being completed at Junior Avenue and down the road to the plaza there, where we do have a local Riser Creek Bakery shop. So that'll offer some safe passage for folks, safer passage, I will say. Thanks to the Division of Highways, there's a lot of construction going on in 7th Ward right now. See, they just put in the traffic lights for the Van Voor's 2-lane project coming down the hill. 2 lanes going straight through, one to as a passage Burrow Street. So that's going to be in the works. And also the roundabout at University Avenue, Collins Ferry is underway as well. So
A lot of construction going on over there. Hopefully that'll improve the future transportation sector, at least for vehicles. We'll have to see how it goes with pedestrians. Hopefully they're including those in their design. But thanks to the Division of Highways for those improvements and spending all that money in the 7th Ward and throughout the county. That's all I've got.
Thanks, Matt.
When my travels about, Pat drew on the back for his work over on North Street and getting all the sidewalks and stuff over there. There's a lot of activity and pretty challenging place to work, but, you know, I usually end up going, if I go to the bank, I have to go that way, and I end up being on parts of streets I haven't been on in a long, long time, up, just off of Jones. There's a couple little streets up there that I haven't been on before, so it's been kind of interesting, but yeah, the progress is looking very good up there, so.
Thanks, Chip. Drew?
Thank you to Councilor Kowecki for advertising the NPO and city kind of meeting that's going to be discussing the Don Knotts pedestrian bridge there at the old waterfront Jeep. I forget what it's called now, but at Mountaineer Heritage Park. That is the proposed location of a new crossing, and what the NPO will be presenting is a feasibility study for that crossing. General high-level cost estimates, renderings. There is a nice 3D rendering and alignments to review. It's certainly a good project, a lot more expensive than any of us, of course, ever wanted to budget for, but we now have real defensible numbers, and it does seem as if it is feasible.
You want to give us a preview, what the numbers are?
Yeah, we're looking more at a $5 to $10 million project, for sure. Yeah,
I'm sorry. When it was first proposed, I think it was $1 million.
Yep, definitely.
Million, give or take.
Yeah. We will also not just be talking about pedestrian concerns, but we will be presenting the initial recommendations and prioritizations from the pedestrian plan that the city has funded. And so that is, right, that's part of the $1 million in sidewalk funding that the city promoted and devoted to these things. And we essentially have, we have 5 poster boards we'll be presenting, talking about our connectivity scores and safety analyses and how we have identified different opportunities for funding. You might choke, but there is the goal, I guess, at this point is $5 million a year for sidewalks and improvements. That's double to 3 to 4 times the amount of money that we spend on just regular paving projects, right? So it is an ambitious plan that will only touch the tip of the iceberg, right? So we do have a backlog, more or less, right, from our idealized network of somewhere between $500 million and $1 billion of sidewalk work that we need to do here in town. And so the plan that we're proposing, that we're asking you all to consider, that we're asking City Council to help us fund, would be a $50 million 10-year plan, really focused on maintenance and replacement of our existing assets, doing a series of spot improvements, and essentially small corridor interventions, and then some higher profile new projects throughout the city. So come and take a look at that. We'd be happy to see you all down there. The city is continuing to do its rapid response pedestrian projects, some of which have been talked about here tonight. Those are under construction. And we've broken ground on the Flagle Reservoir, the dam, trails and bridges project out there. So that is the city's first formal, professionally designed and contracted trail project ever. So that is a very cool thing.
Really cool.
Yeah. I forget if there's other news here. Yeah, but that's cool. really tomorrow, just the big thing going out.
One of the things that struck a note earlier in earlier comments about the traffic signals, there is, and we had looked at in the past, smaller units that could be mounted permanently in certain locations available for purchase, and I'm thinking that their cost went anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 per unit. That might be worthwhile having the traffic commission look to see whether or not that's a viable solution for
Sure.
things.
A traffic signal?
I don't know if we would call them a speedometer, but
The
like.
radar.
Okay, so
That
the
really-
speed feedback signs.
Yes, that
Okay,
really
okay.
deterred, I don't know if it deterred, it slowed people down when they see, like, you're
Yes.
speeding, you're
Yes.
going, I think it said something cute, like, you're going the speed limit, good
Yeah.
job, or something along those lines.
Yeah, and then when you sped too fast, it said slow down, speed kills, right?
Yes, okay.
Yeah. So that costs $15,000, those
Well,
trailers.
The trailer, yeah.
The cheapest that we've been able to find, the speed feedback signs that just say your speed, this, and the speed limit 25 miles an hour, is about $6,000.
Is it up there? No.
Yeah.
Which, like, I don't know if we need to, obviously, a permanent solution would be great, because it seemed to work, but folks were talking about, when it was on Dorsey Avenue, how it really deterred people from speeding. So it definitely was working. And I think that there's a lot of people who don't realize that they're going as fast as they're going.
Yep.
Particularly like some of the bus traffic that goes through the First Ward, who's going significantly more than 15 miles per hour.
Do we have a schedule for that, for that particular unit? We have what, one or two?
We have two, and they are not used 95% of the time. I would love them to be used 100% of the time and just towed from one location to the
Bring them to the
next.
First Ward.
Well,
Yes.
is there something that we can recommend as?
They are owned and operated by the police department. They are not owned and operated by the Department of Public Works, so.
Well, is there a reason for that?
They wrote the grant, and they got it.
They enforce the traffic, I'd imagine, too, so.
Would
Something
they,
like that.
you think in negotiation, that they would be unwilling to have another
I don't
entity take
think,
that?
I don't think that they would be unwilling to do anything. I think that they would be open to any kind of discussion or proposal.
Well,
to
and
consider.
again, what burden are we putting on the city to do it?
Tell you what, can you, maybe the neighborhood association make a formal request? Police department's always been accommodating for that, so.
We have, I think the idea of a schedule, and again, instead of towing it to and from the city garage every time,
To it from one location
to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, right? That seems like less resources to me. And they are solar powered, they are completely, unless they get hit, they don't need anything from us, and we can access all the data remotely, so.
Well, there's.
If the commission would like to help the city put together a list of those locations based on maybe, the complaints and stuff, we would absolutely be willing to
Well,
talk about that.
that would be good if we had complaints like that, but also too, that's some of the things that you could address in your neighborhood, the neighborhood associations.
Yep, absolutely.
Where would a device like that be appropriate?
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
We'll bring it up at the next neighborhood coordinating commission.
I remembered the other public notice. So next Wednesday night, I believe, South Hills has a lot of traffic complaints, or street condition complaints. Even though their streets are in better condition than any other neighborhood in the city, they still got really loud complaints, and they're demanding that city officials come out and join them and walk the neighborhood.
Do you have more information on that then?
Caitlin Lewis was the one that told me.
Oh, okay.
She was
Is
not
her
able to
email
be-
public? Somewhere?
Should be
Okay, I'll look her up.
clewis@morgantownwb.gov.
Okay.
So, the same function as anybody else.
Gotcha.
Form.
Maybe a C. Lewis, not Caitlin.
Yep,
Okay,
sorry, that's what I thought that I said that. C. Lewis.
Okay.
got it.
Very good.
All right. Well, I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:07.
I so move.
A second.
A second.
Thank you, Rachel.